You know that feeling, right? That specific tension right before you have to say something difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're about to walk into a performance review, or you need to confront a friend, or I don't know, you're just raising your hand in a high-stakes meeting.
Mm.
There's this, like, physical moment about 3 seconds before you speak.
The physiological spike.
Exactly. Your throat gets tight. Your heart does that little flutter thing. And your brain just goes into this hyperspeed calculation.
Right.
You're thinking, okay, how do I say this so I sound smart? How do I sound authoritative? How do I make sure I don't sound, too emotional?
You are essentially trying to direct a movie of yourself while you're stringing in it.
It's the vocal equivalent of putting on a suit of armor that's like 3 sizes too small. You're puffing up your chest. You're trying to pitch your voice down.
It is exhausting.
That is the word.
Yeah.
Exhausting. We're all walking around with this constant low-level battery drain because we're perpetually curating how we sound.
We're never just talking.
Right.
We're performing talking.
But today, we're diving into a source that suggests we have this entire equation, well, completely backward.
We really do. We're looking at a fascinating text today that breaks down the principles of what it calls the coherent feminine voice.
Okay.
And I want to be super clear right out of the gate because I know our listeners, this is not a vocal coaching session.
Good.
We aren't going to tell you to, breathe from your diaphragm or articulate your T's.
Which is a massive relief, honestly. I don't need another thing to practice in the mirror.
No. The core argument here is actually pretty radical. It says your authentic voice isn't something you build. It's not a skill you add on. It's something you allow.
Allow.
Yeah. The text frames this as a fundamental shift from performance, which is what most of us are doing all day, to regulation.
Regulation. Okay,
Yeah.
that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack why so many of us feel like we've lost our voice.
Or that it just feels small or fake.
Exactly. And why that isn't a failure of charisma or confidence, but actually a biological response to stress.
It's all biology. We have 10 principles from the source to get through, and what surprised me is how surprisingly physical they are.
They really are.
And that's actually the first key insight. We tend to think voice is mental. It's about choosing the right words, having the right argument.
Being witty, yeah.
But the source starts entirely with the body. Principle 1 and Principle 2 are focused purely on physiology. The headline is basically, voice follows the nervous system.
Which makes total sense when you strip it down.
Yeah.
Voice is just air moving through cords in your throat. It's a physical act.
Exactly. So if your body is in a state of fight or flight, even a low-level one like the stress of a Zoom call, your voice is going to reflect that. It gets defensive, tight, high-pitched, or breathless. The text makes a definitive claim here. If the body is rushed, the voice becomes defensive.
So it's like a biological law.
It is.
So when I sound shrill or shaky, or when I find myself just rambling at 100 miles per hour, it's not because I'm bad at speaking.
Nope. It's because your nervous system is detecting a threat.
And you can't just mindset your way out of that. You can't just think, be confident, and expect your vocal cords to relax.
You have to address the body first. The text gives us a little checklist of things to do before we even open our mouths. It's simple, but very specific.
Okay.
Unclench the jaw, soften the throat, and let the breath drop lower in the body.
Oh, the jaw clenching is so real. I catch myself doing it when I'm just, reading emails. I'm not even talking, and my jaw is locked.
It's a primal protective mechanism. We clench to protect the neck, but the most interesting instruction here, for me, is about speed.
Yeah.
The text says to allow a brief pause because slowness signals safety.
That feels intuitive, but it is so hard to practice. We feel like if we pause, we lose our turn to speak.
But think about it evolutionarily. If you're rushing to get your words out, what are you signaling to your own brain?
That I'm being chased.
You're signaling you're being chased. I need to dump this information fast before I get interrupted or attacked or ignored.
So by rushing, I'm actively telling my nervous system, we are not safe, which then makes my voice tighter, which makes me rush more.
It's a feedback loop of anxiety. And this leads directly to what the text calls the internal argument.
Oh, I live in the internal argument.
Yeah.
That's the voice in my head saying, am I doing this right? Is this boring? Do they like me?
It's the monitor. The text says that split-second hesitation where you check your tone, check your volume, scan the room for approval, that's what kills the flow.
It creates a stutter in the signal.
It's like walking down a flight of stairs. You can do it perfectly if you weren't thinking about it, but the moment you stare at your feet and analyze every single muscle twitch,
What?
what happens?
You trip. Every single
You
time.
trip because you moved from flow to surveillance. And the advice in the text is terrifyingly simple.
Which is,
Ask nothing of yourself. Let the sentence arrive before shaping it.
let the sentence arrive. That sounds very poetic, but in a boardroom,
Yeah.
that feels like jumping off a cliff without a parachute. What if the sentence arrives and it's stupid? Or what if it arrives and it's rude?
And that fear is exactly why we rely on what the text calls the false voice. Which brings us to our second segment, sensation versus strategy.
Okay.
The text defines the false voice essentially as the voice that plans.
Okay, guilty. I plan sentences 3 paragraphs ahead. I'm playing 4D chess in my head while trying to have a casual coffee chat.
We all do. We are strategic communicators. We think, if I say X, they will feel Y, and then I can get Z. We treat conversation like a transaction.
One we need to win.
But the source argues that the coherent voice doesn't plan. It responds. It's reactive to the present moment, not strategic about a future outcome.
That seems like a really crucial distinction. Responding versus strategizing. But how do we actually shift that gear?
You have to get out of your head, the strategy center, and into your sensation. The text suggests a quick internal scan before speaking.
Like, what am I feeling?
Yeah. What do you feel in your chest or your belly? Are you reacting, which is usually defensive and fast? Or are you answering from a grounded place in the body?
And once you're grounded, what comes out? What are we supposed to say then?
This is principle 3, and it's my favorite one. Speak the simplest true thing.
I highlighted this part 3 times. No embellishment, no justification.
It's brutal, isn't it? Think about how much verbal padding we use. I was just thinking maybe if it's not too much trouble, and correct me if I'm wrong, but perhaps.
We're building a cushion so the landing isn't too hard if they disagree. We are pre-apologizing for having a thought.
We're taking up space.
Yeah.
Exactly. The text just cuts through all that. If you are hungry, say, I am hungry. If you disagree, say, I see it differently.
But here's the rub, and the text actually addresses this head on. If I drop the performance, if I drop the teacher voice or the boss voice, I'm terrified that what is left is going to sound soft.
And in our culture, we equate soft with weak.
100%. In a professional setting, soft feels like death. We're told to lean in, to project, to command the room.
And this is where the text gets really interesting. Principle 4 is allow softness without correcting it. It warns that when your authentic voice starts to emerge, your brain is going to panic. It's going to scream, we sound too vulnerable, toughen it up, add some edge.
It's the armor trying to reassemble itself because it feels exposed.
Right. But the source is adamant. Softness is not uncertainty. That is a massive reframe.
Okay, say more about that.
Softness can be resonant, it can be open, it can be incredibly powerful because it isn't forcing anything. The text says confidence comes after allowance, not before.
Oh, I'll pause on that. Confidence comes after allowance.
Yeah.
We usually think we need to pump ourselves up with confidence so that we can speak.
Right. Power poses, hype music.
Yeah. This is saying the opposite. You speak, you allow it to be human and maybe a little soft.
Yeah.
And the confidence comes from the fact that you didn't abandon yourself.
Exactly. You didn't scramble to hide. You stood your ground in your own skin. That's real confidence. It's self-trust.
Okay, but let's pressure test this because this sounds lovely in a vacuum. But what happens in the wild?
Yeah.
You speak your simplest true thing, you let it be soft, and then the other person completely misunderstands you.
Or steamrolls you.
Yeah.
Then what?
This is where the rubber meets the road. Principle 6. Stop collapsing when misunderstood.
That's the trigger point for me. If I'm misunderstood, I instantly go into hyperdrive. No, that's not what I meant. And I call it verbal flailing.
The text calls that a trigger for false programming. When we feel friction, our instinct is to harden, to over-explain,
Yeah.
to flood the zone with words to try and control their perception.
It's a panic response. We're trying to manage their reaction to manage our own safety.
It is. And the advice here is difficult, but powerful. Clarify calmly once. Or, and this is the hardest part, let it pass.
Let it pass. Let it pass. The coherent voice stabilizes when it doesn't panic at friction. It realizes you can't control how you're received, only how you're transmitted.
Wow. That requires a level of internal safety that I think most of us are still building.
It connects to how we handle silence, too. Principle 7 is about letting pauses exist.
Silence is the enemy in modern conversation. We feel like if there's a lull, we failed. We check our phones, make a joke.
We treat silence as an error message. Oh no, the connection dropped. But the source frames pauses as regulation moments. It says, do not rush to fill space. Presence carries meaning.
So the pause isn't emptiness. It's you taking a second to regulate your nervous system so you don't slip back into that frantic, performing voice.
Exactly. If you rush to fill the silence, you're almost always rushing back into the false voice. You're just grabbing the nearest script to make the noise stop.
This all feels like a muscle we have to build. But you can't just decide to do this in a high-stakes negotiation tomorrow. You'll crumble.
You will. The nervous system learns through safety, not brute force. You can't white-knuckle your way to relaxation.
So where do you start?
That's why Principle 5 advises practicing in low-threat environments.
I love the practicality of this section. It lists specific places to start. Speaking alone, and my favorite, voice notes.
Voice notes are a fantastic training ground. There's no immediate feedback loop. You aren't watching someone's face to see if they're bored or angry.
You're not being interrupted.
You're just speaking. It removes the social pressure component so you can practice just letting the sentence arrive.
The text also suggests quiet conversations where nothing is being decided.
That's a key distinction. Not a debate, not a plan for the weekend, just chatting. The text says the voice returns fastest where there is no evaluation.
That leads us into the deep psychological work here, Principle 8. The voice fragments when identity depends on reception.
This is the core wound for so many of us. If my sense of, am I okay, depends on, did you like what I just said? Then I can't possibly speak with my authentic voice.
I'll always be editing for your approval.
You become a mirror, not a source. Just reflecting back what you think the other person wants.
So how do we break that dependency? Because we all want to be liked. We're social creatures.
We are, but the text suggests an internal affirmation to use before speaking. I'm allowed to sound like myself.
And it adds, no one else has to approve this.
It's reclaiming ownership. My voice belongs to me, not to the listener. And when you do that, the voice actually changes quality. Principle 10 describes what it feels and sounds like.
So what does it sound like? Because I think we have this Wonder Woman idea of an empowered voice. Booming, commanding.
TED Talk energy.
Right.
The text actually says the opposite. It says the authentic voice is often quieter than expectation.
Quieter. That stopped me in my tracks.
Think about the people you know who have true, deep authority. They rarely shout, they rarely push.
That's true.
The text says if the voice feels dramatic or strained, it's probably performative. The real voice feels natural, unforced, like home.
Does this feel like home? Instead of, does this sound impressive?
Yeah.
That really takes the pressure off.
It shifts the goal completely.
Okay, but we have to talk about the emergency scenario. We can practice voice notes all day, but eventually we're going to get into a fight or a boss is going to yell at us.
And the throat is going to close up, the voice vanishes.
Right. What's the protocol then?
Principle 9 is the breakdown protocol. Return to the body when the voice disappears.
So, troubleshooting mode, what do we actually do?
The text is very stern here. It says if the voice tightens, shakes, or disappears, stop speaking.
Just stop, mid-sentence.
Stop. The instruction is do not push through.
That is the exact opposite of my instinct. If I feel my voice shaking, I push harder. I try to mask it with volume or speed.
And the text argues that pushing through is a form of violence against your own nervous system. You're reinforcing the danger signal.
You're telling your body, I don't care that you're scared. We're doing this anyway.
Exactly. Which just creates more dissociation.
So what do we do in that silence?
You stop. You take a breath. And you use a grounding technique. Feel your feet on the floor or your hands on the table. You have to physically locate yourself in space.
And wait.
You wait. It might only be 3 seconds, even if it feels like an hour. The text says, the voice returns when safety returns. You can't force it back online.
You know, looking at this whole picture, it really flips the script on self-improvement. We're so used to adding skills, learn to project, learn to persuade.
This is a process of subtraction.
Yeah. It's about stripping away the armoring, the planning, the performing. It's archaeology, not construction. Yeah. You're digging down to what was there before you learn to be afraid.
It all comes back to safety. The entire document pivots on this one idea. You don't have a voice problem, you have a safety problem.
That's the key truth, isn't it?
It is. The text says you already speak this way when you feel safe. Think about it. When you're with your absolute best friend late at night, do you think about your pitch?
Never. I don't think about my voice at all.
Do you plan your sentences 3 paragraphs ahead?
No. I just talk. Sometimes I ramble, sometimes I'm quiet, but I'm never planning.
Exactly. You allow. The machinery works perfectly when the thread is removed, so the work isn't learning to speak. It's learning to feel safe enough to allow speech.
That is such a profound shift. It moves the conversation from performance, how good am I, to regulation, how safe am I?
And that's why it challenges the old advice of fake it till you make it. That just adds another layer of performance. This is more like feel it till you speak it.
Feel it till you speak it. I love that. So, for everyone listening, maybe the goal this week isn't to speak up more in meetings. Maybe it's just to unclench your jaw while you're typing.
Start there. Check in with your belly before you answer the phone. Just ask, am I braced?
Send a voice note to a friend where you don't rehearse. And if you stumble, leave the stumble in. Prove to your brain that the world didn't end because you said,
Let it be messy. The nervous system learns through safety, not perfection.
There's one final thought I want to leave you with, something that really lingered for me after reading this. We've spent this whole time talking about how to regulate yourself to find your voice. And we've established that the voice returns when safety returns.
Right.
So, if you feel like you've lost your voice in your daily life, at your job, in your relationship, maybe that isn't a reflection of your lack of skill. Maybe it's not something wrong with you. Maybe it's a metric. It's a data point showing just how unsafe those environments have become for you.
That changes everything. It stops being, why can't I speak, and starts being, what in this environment is silencing me?
Exactly. And what would it look like to prioritize the safety of the speaker, your own safety over the comfort of the listener? That's a big question, and maybe a scary one, but it's one worth asking. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.